Hey all, this is a small part of United States and Texas military history. I'm working on showing my mom the actual spot on Thompson Road and railroad tracks towards downtown Conroe, mainly the real old downtown Conroe. There's quite a bit of new structures, a small bridge if you're driving from south to north Conroe into town. And Thompson Road is this area. Fraser Street, people know, coming off of 45. So those who care to stay can join us on a route of history today. 45 goes south towards Houston. The towns that arrange are Spring, Texas, and there's probably, hopefully, many to more families. That's where I watched the shopping mall at the Woodlands be built and played tennis and swam. I dove off a 3 platform pool, and that I'll never forget. And the memory didn't come back because we went to the Vietnam War thing and I was young and stayed alive. And in the Honor Cafe, there's I call him a ranger, there's a flag of a tribute of a soldier, a warrior that passed away. So a warrior center could be built, I believe, where the old Goodyear blimp field, that would be a tribute to the veterans, right? But this is mostly for my mom and the families and the airborne ranger community, as also all the other soldiers and warriors and supporters, because it is very important that a ranger, not only descendants, but people that are in real right with their heart about sharing about how the veterans really, not necessarily all of them, but what I did was I was sacrificing my life every day. And these are areas like Lake Jackson, Conroe. A while back, this is an area that's very sacred to me because coming back from the war, this is the last name. I'm really not going to give out any of the names, but I stayed alive after coming back alive from the militaries and the wars, and I only died one time, and that's not for the record, on the record right now, about an armored cavalry operation over working in 3rd Armored Division in all the towns over in Germany, right? So I only died once, but this is very sacred because there's town, Lake Jackson, Conroe, they used to call it, and this is oversharing, but there's a place called Selkirk Island and Matagorda, and I very rarely do I tell people that are really from South Texas. People have heard of Freeport, and they've heard of Corpus Christi, of course, and Galveston, and this park is what I call it, close to the Gulf, right? So this is super cool for me, and this is exactly, see, Galveston and this area right here is from my dad being too much of a ranger, trying to get everything right and buy land, right, after coming back from a war. You don't want to be attached to anybody. I didn't. Candy Cane, it's funny how that's spelled that different, because there's a Candy Cane Park where I learned to ride a bike, and we lived there in Conroe, and that was magic, because I have a video of me, like, almost, it's a joke, but almost landing on top of, like, the airborne people would, man, you almost squashed the house that you left to ride a bike in. But this is all very sacred to me, that I'm alive. See, this goes in Louisiana, the border right here. So Coast Guard and Navy people could appreciate it. You could actually travel from here, in my story, all the way to New Orleans and Eglin Air Force Base, which to me is still considered top secret, not only because it's 4th Ranger Battalion training, And those are just really cool off the record, you know. Their needs. I wish there was more. They call this Sugarland above and below Houston is marked San Antonio, and all that history, the great Alamo and all that, the great war stories, you know, about the Alamo and the Spanish and French and the Mexican, and even Pancho Villa. That's a big deal for me to talk about. 1923, June 23rd in Parral, and this is way off the record. I have my relative is Poinsett, my mom's maiden name, and then that he was the first ambassador, so he went to go kill Pancho Villa. So I'm related, really, a lot more than my blood speaks to the person that's that strong militaristically, and he could have been a greater warrior and soldier than all of them in the world at that time. But he was a governor in South Carolina, and they sent him, assigned and appointed him the first ambassador to Mexico. So he drank a little bit too much. Really worthy for saving himself. He drank because he's an alcoholic, and righteously he discovered he was drunk on his horse, and he looked down and he discovered the poinsettia. He mailed it to a botanist in England, and they said, "What do you want to name it?" And he said, "Poinsettia." So that's directly related to my blood. It's very funny, right? And the Pancho Villa story is very funny about his real name, Doroteo Durango. Pancho Villa Francisco Doroteo Durango, and he killed the first guy at 17 that was raping his sister. And he was a troublemaker in school, and he stole and got kicked out, and he went militaristic on, you know, as a trainer and a leader. So the stories about him escaping from jail is true. I can tell you about that, how he did it with a pair of glasses, how Madero was going to assassinate him because he got too powerful, and the tricks he used with a large sombrero to make the enemy feel like he was rebellious. So the president was jealous and put him on a firing line to kill him, and decided not to. So we got him as Americans July 23rd in 1923, and he had a black, you know, it's a Dodge. I'll push pause and see if I can. Pancho Villa Doroteo Durango Francisco. Pancho Villa, aka Pancho Villa, aka Doroteo Durango Francisco Doroteo Durango, aka Pancho Villa. And I'm gonna go ahead and put way too much of the history. That's what this is about, the Honor Cafe history, which is worthy to be. And here's an uncle, a relative, Don Nelson just died, a relative of distant blood, another Nelson, right? As I was explaining, Poinsett was in my blood, and my mom's last name, maiden name, is Poinsett, and the Poinsett was a ambassador, the first one to Mexico, and he got assigned here from South Carolina. So Pancho Villa history is this. History, Pancho Villa, Doroteo Durango, Francisco Doroteo Durango. So
Pancho Villa, originally named Jose Doroteo Arango Arambula, was born in San Juan del Rio, Durango, on June 5th, 1878, and became a key general of the Mexican Revolution.
There you go.
While the name Duarte occasionally appears in local Durango genealogy, Villa's primary roots remain tied to his early life as an outlaw and revolutionary leader in Durango and Chihuahua.
Okay. So this is things unknown about New Mexico. He invaded, right? As I was saying, he was a great military. Now, as far as killing the guy that raped his sister, that is in the history. And 1923, so I was 3 days off. This is when Pancho Villa and we Americans went in, and his own people, ladies and gentlemen, this is shooting straight to over reaching out and oversharing the truth about his own people wanted to kill him because he went back to drinking and womanizing his own soldiers' women, right? So that's off the record, and this is, you know, top secret to me as a revolutionary. that he wasn't as big and perfect a person as people imagine him to be. So this is for you to research, as in all things when I pass on and share to other people to determine, make their own conclusion. So here you're going to look at July 20th. I was 3 days off. 1923 was where I'm not perfect, but we shot him, and I could say one of his own people did, because the specific assassin I never nailed. Poinsett, I don't think took the shot. 7 assassins, yes, one of them took the shot, and he came this way. He owned a hotel they gave him, and he had he had a Dodge, and when he went into the hotel, they shot him getting out of his car. So the 7 assassins were already in the motel to rid him. And this is the Pancho Villa Honor Cafe. Went into Pancho Villa's is removal, right? So the battlefields, this is Torreon, where he captured a tank. And he did the trick about a bigger sombrero. Like SEAL Team 6, there was only one or a couple. If you make the enemy feel like you have an entire troop up to 1,000 soldiers when you only have a couple, then you're doing what Pancho Villa did with his sombrero. He went over the hill and they surrendered, and he captured a tank in Torreon. See, this talks about his battles, skirmishes, his combat. To me, goes about killing the person that was raping his sister, and also the combativeness that he was capable of control and power over his band. There he is. So you can see this is the famous Villa picture, and there's not a whole bunch of him because he was a exceptional warrior, right? And it was just very rare that people had that much on him.
A horse and fled into the mountains, which began his life as an outlaw and led him to adopt the alias Pancho Villa.
I was leaning towards 17, so that really happened. He killed him, and he headed to the mountains. So he was a fugitive and a rebel, and that was it. So this true story is a history. He's a revolutionary, how he ran to the hills and the woods and escaped like Jesse James. That would be worth it to Google. There, that would be sacred to go Google. And the bands is where I put his school. At 1311, we're going to continue in the blackout. So he did go to school, and he stole quite a bit, so he got kicked out, and he went into the military. And there's when he became the Villa of the Villa that we know of to this day. So when they fought and won the battles, he gained, and people gave him more, like a restaurant and the hotel, and this soldiers more worked for him. Now you can see why he stayed away from public, is you can see what happened to his daughter and how many children, and someone stealing his head and he was excluded. So this is super history. His first kill was here, which is pretty accurate to be a worthy warrior. A lot of warriors are killing from the day born up, and really 2 and 3 hitting it hard with the family tree. Warrior that I won't really give the last name out now ended up being a cavalry scout in Vietnam. Last name Wallace, and that was symmetrical, whatever the right word is, 1437, in alignment, like I was a cavalry scout, right? And so was he. And the kills weren't something that we argued and fought about, because we were both growing in recovery. And Pancho Villa's education.
Pancho Villa had very little formal schooling.
See?
He attended a local church school in Durango, Mexico for a short time, but dropped out around age 15 to support his family. Despite this, he largely taught himself and gained basic literacy, learning to read and write well enough to manage military campaigns and correspondence later in life.
There you go. So this is the short story here, because as a writer, people would want to know, like co-writing would work, right? So this is a joke about escaping to an audiobook, right, on Via, where somebody else writes the other half, bettering it. What I'm talking about, chronology, a more writer chronology. In summary, his birth, his education, his first killing, his escape, and the specific people, which could be very hard, but not really, because it's word of mouth. Like, oh, I remember Villa when he was hiding in refuge in the mountains, right? And then, see, there it was July 20th, and he was 45. Now, 2 bodyguards, they climbed into the Dodge, and they went to the hotel that he owned right here, right? A man in peasant's clothing, assassin, did the same trick he did with the kind of sombrero, right? And that was the words he said. El perro viene manejando. The dog is driving. So this is how he was killed. 6, 7, 8 assassins. See, I was right. So that's under Poinsett. The revolver shot the driver, then he ran off. So he, right here, is very sacred for the history, the books and the movies, right? Because Villa did not make it to the hotel, into the hotel. So you could put a myth, which people would like better. Oh, Villa's not dead. His own soldier killed him because he was screwing his own soldiers' women and drinking and smoking. And there's a picture that's pretty cool before he passed away that is a part of history that needs to be out more of. Now this is way big history right here. See, the school, it would be birth, education, first kill, the hill, all the people that knew him, and there's a death mask. That's pretty cool, huh? See? And a bullet in the forehead. So the assassin was pretty accurate, pretty trained. There it is right there. There's his death mask, and you can see the bullet, like the joke about an assassin. And we'll try to play The Job I wrote. It's a song called The Job Assassin. You can see the bullet head right there. So the 7, 8, 9 assassins went from the hotel, boom, into the vehicle to take him out. Now, pre-planning, you're just saying you're going to kill everyone in the vehicle, which they did, and make sure the target's eliminated. So